Hello guys, this is Trinity Storm here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do 10th part of Naruto the Evolution Bloodline. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on my other social media handles. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto awoke with a start, blinking a few times before his eyes adjusted to the pitch blackness of his hospital room. Sense came and flooded his senses. Next to him, a machine blipped. On a nearby chair, Anko was sleeping, slowly snoring. Naruto stretched like a fox before quickly putting on some clothes. He walked towards his sister after getting dressed, making a lot of noise. Orochimaru had trained Anko to react violently to anyone who came close to her while she was trying to sneak, acting instinctively rather than consciously. He gently roused her from her slumber, watching her rub her eyes with the back of her hands. "Hello, Nichan. Do you sleep well?" Anko yawned stiffly before responding. Yes, it was satisfactory. My back, on the other hand, is going to kill me later. In any case, how about you? Kyuubi stated that the jutsu had exhausted you. Even he had difficulty healing you. Ah, Q-kun, you really care. Naruto laughed in his head. Shut up, brat. All I wanted was for my original container to live. Who would I have to constantly mock then? Kyuubi responded with a huff. Both, however, were aware that it was their own way of demonstrating their concern. Anko chuckled outside as she overheard the conversation. Even a month later, she couldn't believe what had happened to her, never mentioning Naruto's guts and referring to the Demon Lord as a perverted, overgrown bunny. It still made everyone in the room laugh. As the two began to leave the room, Naruto inquired as to what had become of the others, as he was too preoccupied to look at them except for a few seconds. After all, their adversaries were ex-Hokage. Zabuza is mostly fine. He was just tired from some minor cuts, and he's already up, as if anything could keep him in bed for more than a half day. Haku is a little worse because she was hit several times, but it's mostly cracked ribs and chakra exhaustion. She's also up. Hinata is the most inept of the three. Naruto's eyes widened in fear as he focused solely on Anko. She overworked her muscles to the point where some of them were torn. She also received a few cuts during the fight, but she was able to heal the worst of them almost as quickly as she received them. Hinata, on the other hand, is suffering from severe chakra exhaustion. Chakra sensors, shinobi are people who can sense chakra inside others, but not to the extent and perfection of the Byakugan, couldn't detect any in her. She nearly died several times. Naruto stopped dead in his tracks, filled with horror and fear. Fortunately, a couple of Hyuga appeared and assisted her in her recovery. It appears that not everyone in her family despises her. She's fine now. Haku has been checking on her every hour or so to make sure everything is fine. Naruto let out a sigh of relief. He was relieved that Hina-chan was safe, but he despised the fact that he had indirectly contributed to the danger. Naruto almost shook with rage because it was Orochimaru's fault. Habi Teme, strike 2. You won't get a strike 3, Naruto thought as he made his way through the corridors to Hinata. How do Shino and Kurenai fit in? Anko froze mid-step in response, causing Naruto to look at her questioningly before his eyes widened in fear. They're fine. They're alive. Shino's ribcage was broken in half and cracked in the other. A portion of his spine was also damaged, and he suffered a severe concussion. He's now stable, but when I and Jiraiya brought him in, he was rapidly fading. Fortunately, his father, Shibi, was able to communicate with Shino's hive, providing us with complete readouts of his body's condition without interference from outside sources. That was Shino's saving grace. Kurenai was another story entirely. Shodai had her impaled through her stomach, nearly severing her. I was afraid she wouldn't make it because her pulse was so weak. Naruto wrapped his arms around his adopted sister. Many emotions have been released from Anko's tight grip on her heart since her release from Orochimaru's seal. They sometimes overwhelmed her because she had so little experience with them. Anko whispered to Naruto after he had comforted her for a while. "Now I understand how you felt in Wave. Even when you stop using Yukai, the bloodlust remains. I almost ripped Kami and Naruto apart right there and then. Kyuubi, thank you for bringing me back to my senses before I could do it." Naruto gave her a sympathetic look, as he had felt the same way. He was still having nightmares about it. The two moved slowly towards Hinata's room. Two Anbu stood at her door, giving a curt nod to Anko and a small bow to Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki raised an eyebrow at himself. He wasn't used to being shown respect. He walked into Hinata's room and almost fell to his knees, filing it away for later consideration. Hinata was sleeping with a calm expression on her face, sunlight falling on her at just the right angle, giving her the appearance of a sleeping angel. What jolted Naruto was all the machinery that had encircled Hinata. It demonstrated how careless and irresponsible he had been in putting Hinata up against such a powerful opponent. He walked tentatively towards her, his hand moving slowly and hesitantly towards her. It was getting closer and closer to her pale, lovely face. He touched her. Her skin was cool to the touch, contrasting sharply with the warm air around him. Naruto felt tears well up in his eyes when she didn't react. He closed them tightly, hoping in vain to stop the tears. Noticing a chair next to her bed, he sat on it and nuzzled her hands, as if nuzzling them would bring her back to him. "Hinata-chan." Anko felt like she was intruding on a couple's most private moment of sadness, a barely audible whisper. Something sparked, something moved deep within the girl known as Hinata. Perhaps it was the presence of her love next to her, the sound of his voice, or simply the passage of time. Hinata's conscious mind awoke from its slumber and cold, dreamless sleep as the spark. Hinata's body ached from the pain, urging her to sleep once more. A small, barely perceptible warm breath on her hand, on the other hand. Hinata's eyes slowly opened, slowly enough not to be blinded by the hospital wall's whiteness. Anko stood near the door, her back to her, not wanting to interfere with the couple's affairs any further. Hinata moved her head to the side, noticing a familiar blonde mop of hair, and the breath came again, this time with the sensation of skin on skin. Whimpering sounds came from the hair-covered head. Hinata pushed her body against the pain, her hand moving to caress Naruto, showing him that she cared. Naruto's whimpers came to a halt when Hinata made an unexpected movement, and he raised his head to look at her face. Naruto just stared at the lavender pools that were his love's eyes, which were filled with sadness. "I didn't mean to wake you up, Gomen, Hinata-chan. You must be tired, Haim, please go back to sleep." Naruto admitted guiltily. He couldn't seem to get anything right. He'd woken her up when she desperately needed to sleep. He was about to remove his head when Hinata's hands moved to stop him. Hinata's angelic voice sounded strained and tired. "No. Please. Stay." Unable to resist, Naruto agreed to Hinata's request, and the two soon fell asleep. Anko had left as soon as Hinata awoke, only to return later to find Naruto in the same positions, but with his face buried in Hinata's neck and his fingers intertwined with hers. She took out the camera she always kept with her, snapped a photo quietly, and walked away, giggling at the blackmail material. She laughed again as she realized something the camera couldn't capture. Naruto's hands were slowly caressing Hinata's hand, unconsciously seeking to calm and touch his mate. Anko was initially alarmed when Naruto and Kyuubi referred to their wives as mates. Anko had grown accustomed to the term animalistic. Besides, she knew they didn't mean wife in the legal sense, as evidenced by a piece of paper covered in ink in specific designs. Instead, they referred to their soulmate, the one person they will always love above all else. Anko was a little disappointed that she hadn't felt that emotion yet, but as Kyubi pointed out, finding your soulmate is both rare and difficult. It is even more difficult to recognize it in time before you lose them forever. Anko was haunted by Kyubi's eyes for many nights, but she knew better than to inquire when it was obvious it hurt the ancient being. The glint in the giant fox's eyes when they discussed it, however, creeped her out, as if he knew something she didn't. Anko had decided that she would deal with it when it came. Something to do with burning bridges when they crossed them. Meanwhile, Haku was tending to Shino and patiently waiting for him to wake up when his parents entered. Shibi was, indeed, his son's father, as was Shino's mother. Both of them stared at Haku, their hidden eyes almost piercing her soul. Haku stammered an apology and dashed out the door to Zabuza's. It had been a difficult time for her. She struggled to recognize her feelings for the young bug user, unsure whether she liked him as a friend, brother, or boyfriend. After all, she had about the same amount of experience with these things as Shino, which meant next to nothing. She realized how much she cared for him only when she saw him wrapped in bandages, wires connecting him to various machines. Only when it appeared that she would lose him did she realize how much she cared for him, despite his lack of romance experience or difficulty expressing his feelings. She'd be the first to admit that he'd changed a lot for her, even if it was only visible among his closest friends. In the meantime, Asuma was pacing around Kurenai's room agitated. For one thing, he couldn't smoke because the Shodai's attack had scraped Kurenai's lungs, necessitating her being in an entirely clean environment. He couldn't leave her to go outside to smoke because he was worried about her. Second, not long after Asuma arrived, a large, Zanbatu-wielding missing nin appeared. Given how cold he usually was, he seemed genuinely concerned for her safety. He almost ignored Asuma as he spent time in the room questioning doctors about the wounds she had sustained. When Asuma lit a cigarette almost instinctively, he didn't even have time to put it back before Zabuza reacted. Red eyes are in critical condition here. Because her lungs were damaged, she cannot smoke. I'm going to send a Suiruden up your ass the next time you try to smoke, got it? I don't care how much you say you care, but if your stupid addiction to a cancer stick causes her any discomfort, it's open season on your head, Konoha be damned. Is that clear? Now go sit over there like the good little leaflet you are and watch out for her. At the sight of that man's face, Asuma had to stifle a gulp. Then he had to deal with his feelings of jealousy. Zabuza had spent a long time with her, had learned to speak to her without embarrassment, didn't have any habits that annoyed her, and even made her laugh at times. Asuma was enraged by these facts. He'd known Kurenai for a long time, flirted with her, tried everything to get her attention, but she never did anything more than playfully flirt. As he left Kurenai's room, Zabuza chuckled darkly. He was aware of the truth. Kurenai had feelings for Asuma, but she wanted to see if he was serious before devoting herself to a relationship. That is why Zabuza acted the way he did. Kurenai's lungs had been the first to be repaired, so there was no danger of contamination from the smoke. However, Asuma was unaware of this. So Zabuza devised a test to determine whether Asuma was serious enough to let him date her. The Zanbatu wielder may not have liked Kurenai in that way, despite admitting she was very attractive, but she was his friend, and friends look out for each other. He wouldn't let her date someone who wasn't willing to go above and beyond for her. He'd save her from heartbreak. Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Kiba, Lee, and Tenten had convened a small conference in another large room that was used as a waiting room for friends and family of those in the hospital. They were all concerned about the injured Genin and Junin, but they also had many questions. Fortunately, Choji had brought enough snacks for the entire group. Going somewhere without food was something you could never blame an Akamichi for. Choji began with the questions that were undoubtedly on the minds of the three Genin as he opened a pack of chips. So, what happened to you three? Munch 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 asterisk, you're totally different from before. I mean, what have you done in the last month? Tenten chose to speak on behalf of Lee and Kiba. First and foremost, don't eat while speaking or I'll hit you with something heavy and disgusting. Your question is straightforward. We practiced. We worked hard from dawn until late at night. Naruto said we had a lot of potential if we could just get a hold of them. He was correct. He, Zabuza Sensei, Anko Sensei, and Kurenai Sensei all assisted us in breaking it open. Besides, if you're referring to what we did in the stadium, it pales in comparison to what we're capable of. I'm afraid our true abilities are a closely guarded secret. However, under certain conditions, we can share a few things. Shikamaru turned away from the clouds and toward the group. Such as? Are you joining us for one? Only then are we permitted to share our entire skill set, but I'm afraid it's not that simple. You can't just stand up and declare that you're one of us. You need an invitation from the others, confirmation that you have what it takes to be one of us. And, most importantly, the courage to never give up, no matter what the odds are. That's the only thing that'll keep you going in the face of Naruto's training schedule. This time, Kiba spoke up. When they remembered Naruto's training regimen, all three genin shook. Tenten and Kiba were terrified, but Lee was looking forward to more of it. Sure, Lee wasn't always yelling about youth, but that didn't mean his enthusiasm for training had waned. He was actually more ecstatic. Troublesome. I guess Naruto sent me an invitation like that, but I have no idea what you're looking for. I mean, you speak as if you're a distinct group or something. This time, Lee responded. Hi, Shikamaru-san, you are correct. We are a group that is distinct from the rest of Konoha's shinobi. We have a common goal, but I'm afraid I can't share it with you. Only Naruto-kun and the Junin know for sure. It is a very young goal, but it should be everyone's goal. This time, Ino was interested, her inner gossip queen surfacing. Come on. Why aren't you telling us? I mean, aren't we all nakama? Shouldn't you share such information with everyone? Or are you some sort of illegal organization? Tenten burst out laughing. No, we're not breaking the law. Sandame-sama is aware of our existence and has even given us his blessing. In all but name, he is one of us. But you're mistaken, Ino. We're looking for Tomodachi, not nakama. There is a distinction. However, I recommend that we look for things other than our goals. We'll tell you when it's time to join us, but at your current rate, you're unlikely to. Eh? What exactly do you mean? To put it simply, you have almost none of the things we're looking for. We all recognize that you have a lot of potential. But you're doing everything but using it right now. We can't, and don't want to, be your Tomodachi until you get rid of your stupid fangirlish tendencies and decide to take being a shinobi seriously. It may appear harsh and evil, but it is sometimes necessary. You are anything but a capable kunoichi, Ino. You only have your appearance. There is no chakra, control, dedication, skill, or anything else. You're not much stronger than a civilian. But I. Tenten's harsh words moved Ino to tears. Lee grabbed Choji's hand and gave him a harsh look as he tried to stop her. No. She must hear it. She has to feel how useless she is right now to the core of her being. Ino shed more tears and almost sobbed. Do you sense it, Ino? The sadness that comes with being completely incapable of doing anything? You're afraid you'll never be wanted or needed. Lee nodded enthusiastically. When he saw this, he gave her a big grin. Tenten took over from there. In Naruto's words, once you understand your situation, we can work from, isn't admitting your mistakes the first step to correcting yourself? That's something we've all felt at some point. Tenten is correct. Every time my sister beat me, I felt useless. Tenten was always considered lesser, simply because she was female, regardless of how much she practiced or how good she became. Lee, on the other hand, has had it worse than any of us three, constantly looked down upon because he can't shape chakra. We all felt it, and we didn't run away. We jumped right into that pit of despair, hit rock bottom, and then made our decision. Kiba went on, pausing to let Tenten finish. We resolved that it would not happen to us again. We made the decision to train harder than anyone before us. We'd never be that weak again. Not only for the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong, but also for the sake of our goal. Choji comforted Ino, who sniffled slightly. He didn't like it, but he knew she needed to hear it. Shikamaru cast a glance at Ino, who was gathering her thoughts before speaking again. It's unfortunate that you made her cry. However, it may turn out to be beneficial in the end. So, who is in this small group? Sandame, Naruto, Hinata, Shino, Kurenai, Haku, Zabuza, Anko, and, of course, us. We're thinking about hiring more people, but we have high standards. Can you tell us what you guys can do? Not the specifics, but what you're good at. I'm intrigued because you're so different from who you used to be. Kiba took the floor first. I specialize in close-range assassination and tracking. I'm skilled at hiding, as well as fighting with my chained clawed gauntlets and, of course, Akamaru. I'm also quite skilled at Raiden Jutsu. Lee went on. Because I can't shape chakra, I've concentrated on close-range combat. Mid-combat tactics, old-school shinobi tactics, and close-quarter combat are my specialties. I've focused a lot on my taijutsu style, Ryuken, and Quan Dao. Since I can't use chakra, I've discovered an alternate power source that has rendered me virtually immune to genjutsu while also bestowing upon me insane physical abilities. Tenten was last to arrive. Like before, I'm a long-range specialist. But I've added some genjutsu and ninjutsu to my repertoire just in case. However, thanks to my special friend, I'm also very good at close-range combat. A word of caution for me. Do not block. Instead, dodge. Otherwise, regardless of your defense, I'll cut right through you. Finally, I have a set of ninjutsu attacks that only I can use, and only under certain conditions. Lee and Kiba rubbed a few scars they had accumulated unconsciously. Tenten's fighting style was merciless. I see. You've become much more vexing. Though I suppose it's a good thing, fewer things for us to do. Shikamaru's antics made Lee, Tenten, and Kiba laugh. At that point, Ino decided to speak up, inquiring about some of the rumors she had overheard. I heard you guys, girl, and puppy have some unique names. I heard a few news reports about them. I'd heard about Ryu something, Ukami, and Maken. What's the deal with that? Kiba burst out laughing. That's who we are. Tenten's name is Maken no Tenten, and Lee's nickname is Ryushin. We started calling ourselves that when we were together. It makes us sound more badass. I guess we just started calling each other that because Zabuza gave everyone nicknames. So, what do they all mean? Why, I mean, did you get them? Ino was curious. Lee took the floor first. My came from my fighting style, Ryuken. I didn't even like the name at first, but Naruto-kun thought it sounded cool, so it stuck. It's a one-of-a-kind fighting style that only I can use. Anyway, Naruto and Hinata had the idea while I was practicing my techniques, specifically my Ryu Shippo. Hinata-san stated that when I perform certain moves, a dragon coils itself around me, and that when I am angry, I resemble some sort of dragon god. Ryushin is far superior to Ryu no Kami, though I'd prefer a more subtle one. I'm still adjusting to the amount of power and attention I've received. Kiba was the next to speak. Mine is derived from my fighting style as well. It's called Ryu Kami, and I use it after covering my gauntlets, Ryu Sume, or my chained kama, Ryu Shippo, with electricity. It was also obvious because most of my jutsu take on the shape of a wolf. So I became Ikazuki no Ukami, the hunter who never failed to catch his prey. Tenten completed it. I got mine from a special friend. I'm afraid I can't talk about it openly just yet, but all I can say is that it's spot on. But I hope I won't have to cover it for much longer. Shikamaru groaned. Tenten's words echoed in his head. What would he have done if one of his friends was in danger? Obviously, he would have fought. But that fight taught him that sometimes intelligence isn't enough. It is sometimes a matter of resources rather than strategy. As a result, he'd require more resources. It was a life-changing experience for Nara. Ino, on the other hand, was not paying attention to Shikamaru. She continued, seeing her chance to get the 3 genin to open up and share more juicy gossip. How about the others? They should, after all, have nicknames, right? Yes, but you'll have to ask them. It's a personal choice whether or not we reveal them. The 3 of us don't care, but the others don't want them to leave so soon. However, I would advise against requiring them. Naruto has a tendency to be paranoid at times. With all the crap he's been through in his life, it's only natural, but don't be too harsh on him. He may appear carefree and normal, but he's been through a lot of hell. Never betray him, or he will have to line up to destroy you. Everyone in this group is fiercely loyal to everyone else. What hurts one of us hurts all of us. Besides, if you hurt Naruto, you shouldn't be afraid of us. Hinata is the name. When she's angry, that girl can be terrifying. Kiba trembled in terror. He had witnessed Anko and Hinata's fight. He wasn't easy to scare, but Hinata succeeded. Ino was disappointed, but the conversation continued in a light tone. By asking strategical questions, Shikamaru was able to approximate the location of the headquarters. Asuma walked out a few hours later to find his team deep in thought and conversation. Team 10 had a lot on their minds. Speaking with the others, they discovered that the world is not a friendly place. It's a harsh world where your best friend, lover, or child could be murdered in cold blood over a perceived insult or material possessions. They were all thinking as the group left with their sensei. Choji recalled what Lee had said to him. Flashback. Choji-san, I know you despise the F-word, but it's unfortunately accurate. However, I don't mean it as an insult, but rather as a characteristic you have. You constantly consume food for your clan's techniques, but is this the only way? Kiba-kun is familiar with many clan techniques, but he hasn't limited himself to them. He has broadened his horizons and grown as a result. Start exercising if you want some advice. To the greatest extent possible. Imagine how much more powerful you will be if you exercise in addition to having the chakra stored as excess fat. Clan techniques are undeniably powerful, but there is always a counter. What if you can't use them as effectively as you should? What if your friends are harmed as a result? Shouldn't you also learn something else? You will only grow stronger, better able to protect your friends and family. Do you comprehend? Flashback concludes. Choji had been deafeningly quiet since these words. What if Lee was correct? He caught a glimpse of Kiba in action. He was incredible. He's a far cry from where he was a month ago. If Kiba became so powerful because he branched out, shouldn't Choji do the same? Aside from food, few things are more important to an Akamichi than friends and family. For a brief moment, he imagined Ino and Shikamaru dead because he was too focused on his clan's abilities. When Choji's eyes opened again, a low but noticeable fire burned inside. Ino was in the same situation as Choji. She was always expecting Sasuke to come to her aid. Her recent brush with war, however, revealed how naive she was. She was so flawed. She had always compared herself to other fangirls like Sakura, never meeting a serious kunoichi like Tenten. After all, whenever her father brought someone like that into the house, Ino would huff and pout before running up to her room to look at Sasuke's photos. Tenten was a completely different person. She was graceful, strong, determined, and stunning. She had everything. Maybe she could become like that if she followed her advice? Ino turned to her sensei and asked him a question, the answer to which she dreaded. "How good do you think I am as a kunoichi, sensei? Please be honest." Asuma sighed and locked his gaze on her. He didn't want to do it, but he didn't have a choice. "To be honest, your only ability is your appearance, which you are too young to use. As you are, the only thing you could possibly be good at is seduction. Or being used as a whore to milk secrets. Your reserves are non-existent and your command is nowhere near as strong as it should be. Your taijutsu is equally lacking, and don't even get me started on weapons. In truth, I joined this team hoping that Inoichi-san would not accept a fangirl as a daughter, but I was mistaken. Your value to the ninja ranks is close to zero. Even in the arts of seduction, Tenten has a better chance. She even used seduction as a distraction while fighting. Ino's ideal of herself was irreparably shattered. According to her sensei, she was the weakest, most useless kunoichi ever. Correct. Second most ineffective. She was still more attractive than Sakura. She told herself this. Even if she thought large foreheads were ugly, Sakura had something distinctive about her. Ino walked slowly home, looking around at the demolished buildings all around Konoha. She was about to have a long overdue talk with her father. Shikamaru walked lazily next to Asuma, his apparent boredom masking his thoughts. They were correct. His only strength was his intellect. He'd still need the resources to put that intelligence to use. Something that he lacked. As a result, he'd have to acquire them. Shikamaru would have to work and train hard for that to happen. He wouldn't be able to slack off and nap for much longer. Then he asked himself the logical question, could he still slack off if that's what would kill his friends? Shikamaru needed to train, and he needed to train hard, to overcome his years of laziness. He knew he'd never be as strong as Lee or as destructive as Naruto, but that didn't mean he had to be. Like Shino, his specialty was intelligence rather than combat. The lazy Nara Genin sighed in disappointment, knowing that whatever decision he made would be difficult. He then smirked. If it's going to be difficult, choose the most difficult. Something to the effect of, if you're going to do something, do it well. For the next few days, all three genin had a lot to think about and even more to discuss. The truth of the situation weighed heavily on their shoulders, revealing the real world in a way they wished they had never had to witness. Sandame was looking at Kakashi from behind his office in another building. What brings you here, Kakashi? The copy nin looked downcast at Sarutobi. It's Kami, and I'm not sure where to begin. I guess I'll start at the beginning. Hokage-sama, you know I've never disliked Naruto. I didn't like him, but I didn't despise him either. I avoided contact with him because I considered him to be a risk. Don't get me wrong. I believe Minato Seal, Sensei's, but what happened 5 years ago? It was risky. Maybe my paranoia got the best of me, but I never hated him. I didn't trust him, I didn't like him, but I never despised him for who he was. If anything, I am well aware of the burden that was placed upon him. I just want you to know that, even though I acted irrationally toward him, I had no idea the extent of Minato's seal. Sensei's, I had no idea Shinigami-sama had created it. As a result, I must apologize to both him and you for my previous heinous actions. Kakashi continued, taking a deep breath to center himself. I'd also like to apologize for my irrational and unprofessional behavior, which resulted in me not teaching anything other than tree walking to my other two students, with the exception of Sasuke. I cannot and will not attempt to justify my actions. I simply assumed Sasuke would be like me. A prodigy, quiet, brooding, and skilled. He appears to be all of that, but without any loyalty to the leaf. He's also mentally unstable, which is partly my fault because I ignored it due to my blindness to my deceased teammate. Because of these factors, I accept the need to be punished in whatever way you deem appropriate, Hokage-sama. However, Kakashi bowed deeply before his leader. Please. Please don't separate me from my team. I'm not sure what I'll do without them. I've only recently begun to form bonds with people other than myself. If I lose them, I'm not sure what I'll do. Also, I'm probably the best person to teach them. They have or had some semblance of respect for me. Please allow me to make amends for my past mistakes and do not remove me from my team. Sandame stood up and looked out the window. Kakashi. Do you really believe I'm a senile old man? The old man continued without waiting for an answer. I am not as stupid or reckless as you believe. Also, I understand your difficulties because I made the same mistakes once and am still paying for them. You will, however, be demoted to Chunin and lose command of Cell 7. Kakashi's head snapped up so quickly that he may have suffered whiplash. However, Hokage-sama. Enough with Kakashi. I do this for a reason. Aside from your recent team failure, you remain one of Konoha's most valuable and loyal shinobi. Do you honestly believe I'd do something like that without first considering it? I may play the senile, frail old man, but I can still outwit Nara in strategy. This is one such instance. So, Kakashi, tell me, what do you know about a Black Ops operation? Kakashi simply blinked before rising quickly, recomposing himself in seconds, as he had been taught. On your orders, Hokage-sama. As I previously stated, there is a reason for your demotion. It's finally here. For years, a council member named Danzo has been assembling his own shinobi forces within Konoha. He either kidnaps or persuades other shinobi to join him in exchange for power or money. He then brainwashes them, robbing them of their memories and emotions. That is your new mission. You are to infiltrate this root-coded organization. You will be depressed and overcome by grief and hatred for the Hokage as a result of your recent demotion. Search for this organization. We know it exists, but it is too secretive and well hidden to be discovered. I'd like you to be our insider. Infiltrate it and provide us with the information and evidence we need to execute that jerk. I'll admit that his root has done an excellent job in handling delicate cases, but a parasite is a parasite, no matter how useful. This is your new mission, Kakashi, and it's a delicate one. Kakashi suddenly realized who he was following. He managed to kill two birds with one stone. He not only punished Kakashi for his folly, but also managed to manipulate the situation to eliminate yet another foe. Kakashi bowed deeply, smiling as he realized the god of shinobi was back among them. I will do my best, Hokage-sama. This conversation never took place. But, please, tell me about my genin, or rather, my previous genin. Sandame grinned. The team will not be altered. As much as I want to imprison Sasuke right now, the time isn't right. They will, however, require a sensei, and I have just the man for the job. Alternatively, pair for the job. Sandame's eyes twinkled with malice, making Kakashi cringe with sympathy for his genin. Zabuza and Anko are their new senseis. Kakashi widened his eyes. Who would have guessed the grandfatherly old man could be so twisted? He once again took command of the situation. He made certain that not only the team but also Zabuza and Anko were treated fairly and that Sakura's fangirlish tendencies were eliminated. Not to mention that Kiba would receive proper instruction, not that he needed it, as Kakashi recalled. Kakashi also made a mental note to leave his student a few Raiden scrolls. After all, Kakashi was Konoha's most proficient lightning user. Kakashi bowed to the elderly Kage once more. He quickly shunshined away without another word. Sandame laughed in the office. It's time for retaliation. The funeral for the deceased shinobi and civilians was held a few days later. Konoha had gathered in one large ceremony to bid them farewell for the last time. Everyone had come dressed in black to express their condolences. Or, at least, almost everyone, as some people made their absence known. Uchiha Sasuke was at the top of the list because, as he stated, he didn't have time for sentimental foolishness and needed to train. Many people cried that day, but Sarutobi's speech reminded them that they were still alive and that life continued. He also made a public announcement of the roles of Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, Mitarashi Namikaze Anko, Momochi Zabuza, Yuhi Kurenai, and Aburame Shino in fighting off the villain responsible for the situation. Following the funeral, many people made a mental note to apologize to Naruto for their actions. However, because most of them did it because of his father, Naruto simply ignored them. Naruto gave the others a cold, piercing look, but otherwise forgave them. He had long since forgiven them for hating him because of his burden, as he had stated in the stadium. When asked, Naruto stated that if he wasn't the one, he would despise the container as well. He also warned them not to let their lack of knowledge turn into fear and hatred, lest their actions bring about their own demise. Kakashi also made time to speak with the genin who had turned the surprise attack into a victory. He waved at them as he passed by a large table in the Namikaze clan estates with massive orders of ramen, cinnamon buns, barbecue, and dango. Naruto and Kiba both gave them a cold stare. I'm not very good at this, so I'll say it as it comes. I sincerely apologize for my previous actions toward you, Naruto and Kiba. I was a fool, oblivious to my own history. Naruto, I never hated you, but I thought you were dangerous, especially after what happened that night 5 years ago. Kiba, I really don't have an excuse. Instead of focusing on Sasuke, I should have trained you better. Anyway, I know when I've outstayed my welcome, so I'm leaving. Oh, and before I forget, these Raiden scrolls are for you, Kiba. I thought you might be interested in seeing them. I've already memorized them. Kakashi hurled scrolls at Kiba, who grabbed them from the air. Then he turned around and walked away. Hinata fixed her gaze on Naruto. Before calling out to Kakashi, the blonde Jinchuriki sighed. Oi Kakashi, since your house is on the other side of Konoha, please join us for a drink before you leave. With his trademark eye smile, Kakashi turned around. You know what? I believe I will. Thank you very much, Naruto. The group ate, drank, and partied late into the night. Naruto decided to let them all bunk in the house rather than forcing them to leave because the estates were large enough. While the Namikaze clan estates were not as large as the Hyuga clan estates, there were several differences. It was a building that showed what it was made for, a clan. From the outside fence providing powerful defenses thanks to Minato's seals, to the large plant-covered yard, to the outside training grounds, to the 3 stories high building, to the 2 underground levels. The clones of Naruto worked tirelessly to restore the house to its former glory, cleaning the outside yard, planting new seeds, cataloging the library, mapping out and cleaning the house, and reinforcing its defenses. An underground floor had been converted into a jutsu and information vault, securing items that should not be seen by others. The other underground floor was converted into a dojo armory combination, reinforced with multiple seals to ensure both safety and privacy. Some clones even began work on a second structure, a forge, to meet the needs of the clan and its allies. Tenten shrieked when she learned about the forge. Her parents had been smiths for as long as she could remember, and it was an art she enjoyed as well. Naruto didn't get much sleep that night. He was outside, looking at the full moon, thinking about the people who died that day. It was a painful reminder of his own fate, of his eventual loneliness. Anko crept behind her younger brother. "So, Uto, what's on your mind?" "Hello there, sis." "Not much. Only. What Neji said about me might be true after all." "Eh? What exactly do you mean?" "Ne-chan. There's something that only I and Gigi are aware of right now. It's that. Ne-chan, I can't die. Bah. Give me a few more months and I'll show you what it means to not die, Gaki." "Ne-chan, I'm not kidding. I'm not going to die. Wounds can kill me, but you know how quickly I heal. The issue is that I will never age. I have become immortal, Ne-chan. I will never age or die." Anko gave Naruto a strange look. "Gaki, that's something most people would give their lives for, and some have. What's the matter with you, little bro?" "That's what loneliness is, Anko. Hinata-chan will age and die. My children will grow old and pass away. My grandchildren will age and die. And I'll still be here, dragging my cursed being across this planet." Anko simply looked at her younger brother, sensing his anguish, confusion, and, most importantly, fear. "I wouldn't be concerned about that, Uto. I'm confident you'll find a way. Hinata-chan must be getting cold and lonely by now." Anko finished with a seductive grin. At the very least, she managed to divert Naruto's attention away from his current predicament. Anko took his place on the ground and stared at the moon as he watched him walk back into the building. "What are our plans to address this? Kyubi, what's up?" At the time, the Great Fox had no response. Sandaime called Naruto to his office a few days later, saying he had a new solo mission. Naruto entered and saw Jiraiya waiting for him. Sandaime rose from his seat and gazed out the window. "Good to see you both here. Now, Naruto and Jiraiya, I have a mission for you. You must leave the village to find a replacement for me." Naruto's eyes widened in shock.
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.